Hey, good morning, and welcome to the Raleigh Chamber's Partners Forum 2020 Elections and Political Landscape. My name is Mike Munn. I am President and CEO of the McAdams Company. We're about a 300-person engineering and design firm headquartered here in the Triangle. I also serve as Vice Chair for Government Affairs with the Chamber, alongside the Chamber's wonderful staff, Vice President John Goodman and Sarita Hargrove. The Partners Dinner is a signature event that we have perennially in person. It's always a wonderful event. And first of all, this year we're doing it different and adapting like everybody's having to adapt. So I'd like to express my gratitude to the Chamber staff for adapting and contemplating these, navigating through these technical things that may pop up, and ask for your grace if things pop up. We got a lot of speakers here today, but I want to thank the Chamber staff. I'd also like to thank the speakers today for joining us in this new format. I'd like to thank our sponsors who continue to support us in this new format, and I'd like to thank you as participants. This isn't a dinner event with surf and turf and handshaking and networking, but this is an important event for informing all of us as we go into this important election cycle. So I thank you for adapting and joining us today. As we all know, election days are critically important. They're important for the business community and our community as a whole. It's important that we show up and vote, because whoever is voted into office affects decisions that in fact affect policy, that affect our businesses and our communities on a daily basis. This morning is an opportunity to celebrate the partnerships we enjoy with these elected officials and the Triangle business leaders, but it's also an opportunity to gain insights on the political landscape and get prepared for the 2020 elections. It's important that we elect leaders who understand the issues important to us in the business community and to our communities as a whole. And it's also important that we stay engaged and that we provide support to those elected officials as they serve. Today, you'll hear from candidates from various races at the federal and state level of government. And throughout the course of the event, I encourage you to do these 4 things. First, I encourage you to follow the Raleigh Chamber and the candidates that you hear today on the social media platform of your choice, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Second, take note of things that you may hear from candidates that resonate with you, and be sure to share that on social media. And I'd also ask that you tag us in this event with hashtag PartnersForum20. Again, hashtag PartnersForum20. Third thing is, consider how you could get more deeply involved, not only to hold candidates accountable for what you may hear them promise and say as they go through the election cycle, but also so that you can be a resource for these elected officials as they serve and as they need inputs from those of us in the business community. And lastly, I'd like for you to thank all the elected officials who've taken time to participate in today's event, and also who take time out of their lives to serve our region and our state and our country in giving their service to us through their elected service. Partnerships we forged with our elected officials is critical in sustaining the vibrant economy we enjoy in our region. It's those partnerships that have helped us continue to achieve national and international accolades. So I want to thank each of you for your support and dedication to our region, to our city, to our region, and our state. And before we continue, I'd also like to recognize the sponsors who made today's event possible. I'd like to begin with our presenting sponsor, McGuire Woods Consulting. We'll hear more from Mary Nash Rusher, but thank you, McGuire Woods, for being a presenting sponsor here today. Next, our silver sponsors. Those include Dominion Energy, Fidelity Investments, and Nationwide Insurance. Thank you to our silver sponsors. And lastly, to our bronze sponsors, AT&T North Carolina, Martin Marietta, Relate Advocacy, Skanska USA, Shelco, and York Properties. Thank you all for being bronze sponsors and for helping us to bring this event here today. And thank you for your continued partnership with the Raleigh Chamber. Again, please join the conversation on Twitter by using the hashtag PartnersForum20. Again, hashtag PartnersForum20. And with that, I'd like to turn the program over to Mary Nash Rusher, Managing Partner with McGuire Woods, to learn more about their firm and to introduce our speakers. Mary Nash.
Good morning, Mike, and thank you for hosting this important event, although I miss the surf and turf and I miss seeing all of you in person. I am the managing partner of the Raleigh office of McGuire Woods. I'm standing in today for Bo Heath, who is the practice group leader of McGuire Woods Consulting in North Carolina. He had a client engagement this morning and could not be here. We are very pleased to be the presenting sponsor for today's event and to hear about and provide a forum for this really important topic. McGuire Woods Consulting is the government affairs arm of McGuire Woods. McGuire Woods itself is an AmLaw 50 law firm with offices across the country, but most importantly, in my opinion, in Raleigh and Charlotte. The law firm and McGuire Woods Consulting work hand in hand to provide comprehensive solutions to challenges our clients face. McGuire Woods Consulting is a national leader in government affairs solutions with comprehensive services at the local, state, and federal levels. Our distinctive strengths are in state and local lobbying, thought leadership, issue management, bill tracking, coalition building, and grassroots, grasstops advocacy. In North Carolina, we have a group of bipartisan government officials with decades of experience, ranging from legislative aides to Supreme Court judges to gubernatorial chiefs of staff. If you have any questions or needs that McGuire Woods Consulting could help you with, please feel free to contact Bo Heath at McGuire Woods Consulting or myself at the law firm. Next, I wanted to introduce our keynote speaker today. Brad Crone is a president of Campaign Connections, a Raleigh-based consulting firm specializing in public affairs, public relations, and grassroots campaigns for trade associations, advocacy groups, and corporations. A North Carolina native, Brad has been providing governmental affairs and public relations consulting services since creating his firm in 1991. Before that, he was a daily newspaper publisher at the Thomasville Times in Thomasville, North Carolina. He was the first desktop newspaper publisher in the state with his weekly publication, The Clayton Star, which he sold in 1989. Mr. Crone has served as a special assistant to North Carolina Commissioner of Agriculture Jim Graham and Deputy Press Secretary to U.S. Senator Locke Faircloth during the 1984 Democratic gubernatorial campaign. He has more than 30 years of experience in regional politics, managing campaigns and public affairs programs in North Carolina, Virginia, Kentucky, Maryland, Ohio, South Carolina, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, and West Virginia. He has been featured as a mover and shaker in Campaigns and Elections magazine. He has consulted on a number of policy issues, including healthcare reform, prescription drug policies, bankruptcy reform, agribusiness development, agriculture labor policies, and volunteerism in America. He is a Wolfpack, has a Bachelor of Arts degree from North Carolina State University in political science with a concentration in communications. He has additional studies at Mount Olive College and the North Carolina Institute of Government. Please join me in welcoming Brad Crone.
Thank you, Mary. Long live Dr. Abraham Holtzman. He was a great professor of mine at NC State University, a great American as well. I'd like to welcome and say thank you for all the chamber members who are joining us this morning, as well as welcome the viewers from WRAL online who may be watching us on live stream this morning. Campaign 2020 is going to be a really important moment in our history. I can't think of any other election that I've been involved in that is as dynamic as an election that we're seeing right now. A lot of that is based off of the growth, the changing complexion of our state's political makeup. And that's driven predominantly by the growth that we are witnessing in our metropolitan areas. For the past 20 years, we've seen unprecedented growth, in particular in the Charlotte market and in the Raleigh-Durham Fayetteville market, as well as not as high, but a sustained growth rate in the Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point market. A note of history, the 2015 session of the North Carolina General Assembly made history because it was the first time in the history of our state that there were more lawmakers from urban districts than rural districts. Another interesting dynamic in the campaign this year is that over the last really 14 years, 16 years, we've seen a concentration of vote along the I-85 corridor. 3 television markets now control 74.5%, almost 75% of all the votes that will be cast in the general election are in 3 television markets. Next slide. So you can see on the state markup that the Raleigh-Durham television market represents 33.5% of the television of the votes cast. The Charlotte market represents 23.75% of the total votes cast, and the Greensboro market, Guilford and Forsyth with the wraparound counties, represents 17.25%. The other significant, the Wilmington market at 5%, the Greenville, Washington, New Bern market at 10%, and the Buncombe County Asheville television market 9%. The Norfolk market is at 1.5%. The Myrtle Beach, Florence television market right at 1%, and the Atlanta market that covers the far southwest tip of the state, Graham, Cherokee, and Clay counties, is right at 1% as well. The next slide. The television markets are dominated by the metropolitan counties, which have a different political flavor than you would say in the suburban wraparound. So your tier 1, your highest populated counties are your metropolitan counties with Wake, Durham, Cumberland, Guilford, Forsyth, Mecklenburg, and Buncombe County. Next slide. Then you have what is known as the most important wraparound counties, because these counties are going to determine to a great extent the outcome of the election. And these are what I call your wraparound counties, which include in the Charlotte market, Union, Stanley, Cabarrus, Rowan, Iredell, Catawba, Lincoln, Gaston County. In the Greensboro market, it's Alamance, Randolph, and Davidson County. In the Raleigh market, it's Johnston, Harnett, Lee, Wilson, Nash, Wayne, Halifax, Franklin, and Granville County, now based on the recent U.S. Census data showing the growth that you're seeing in Franklin County. So those are the wraparound counties that play an important role because both bases are galvanized at this point in time. And so the performance of the unaffiliated voter in your wraparound counties will determine who governs the state of North Carolina. Next slide. There are some important numbers for you to know. 60%, 16%, 27.35%. 60% is the average unaffiliated vote cast for Democrats and Republicans in 2006, 2008, 2010, 2012, and 2014. In 2006 and 2008, unaffiliated voters broke 60% for Democratic candidates at the state level and at the federal level. If you remember the 2008 election, you had a sweep with the presidential, U.S. Senate, gubernatorial, and legislative races in the state, buoyed by unaffiliated vote performance. In 2010, it was the exact opposite. Unaffiliated voters broke 60% for Republicans in 2010, 2012, 2014. That number was cracked just a little bit in 2016 when 55% of independents voting broke for Republican candidates at the federal and the state level. In 2018, that number was right about 53% of unaffiliated voters casting ballots for Democrats at the state and federal level. 16% is the average Democratic crossover vote for elections over the last 10 years. In 2010, 2012, 2014. That number was cracked a little bit in 2016. It was cracked significantly in 2018, where the Democratic crossover vote was 8%. So Democrats have been able to cut off the crossover vote. The crossover vote is usually an older white Democrat in a rural region of the state who is fiscally conservative and socially moderate to conservative. And so they've been breaking with the Republican candidates, and that's been a big problem because Democrats have a hard time winning statewide elections when the crossover rate gets above 10 or 11%. 27.35% was the unaffiliated voter performance in 2016. That was up almost 5 points from 22.64 performance in the 2012 presidential election. I called it the Trump bump. Approximately 200,000 new independent voters were performing at the ballot box, and that gave the president, Donald Trump, a win here in the state of North Carolina. Next slide. A breakdown on voter performance from 2016, 68.51% of all Democrats who were registered to vote turned out. Republicans had a higher performance, 75.24% of all Republicans registered to vote turned out at the polls on 2016. And unaffiliated independent voter performance was at 63.7%. The unaffiliated voter performance is the real story in North Carolina politics right now. Next slide. Over the last 8 years, we've gone from 7 counties across the state that had a plurality of unaffiliated voters to now there are 13 counties across the state that have a plurality of unaffiliated voters. It is the highest performance of registration above both Democrats and Republicans. And it will continue to be an interesting trend to see how unaffiliated voters access the ballot box as we move forward. One thing that I would note, look, Wake County there, we now have more unaffiliated voters registered in Wake County than we do Democrats or Republicans. Next slide. Campaign 2020 is going to be all about turnout. Every single candidate, campaign manager, and consultant will tell you that Campaign 2020 comes down to turnout. Both bases, the Republican base and the Democratic base, are energized. Over the last week, I made about 40 telephone calls to clients, former clients, elected office holders, Democrat operatives, Republican operatives, trying to get a handle for what's going on as far as organized efforts to turn out their votes. And both parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, are really putting a lot of energy and effort, time, and money into their turnout models. The Republicans have organized turnout models around Team Trump in practically every county in the state. There are reports that as many as 300 paid field staff will be working in North Carolina by the end of August for Team Trump. And they tweeted just last weekend that the Republican volunteers across the state have made more than 1 million telephone calls to active voters in the state. The Democrats aren't going to be outdone, though. There is important organizing. The Democrats are really working in the metropolitan and the suburban counties with organized volunteer efforts doing the same thing on voter contact. COVID-19, of course, has limited their ability to hold meetings and do door-to-door, so a lot of it's direct telephone work. One other interesting note is that the Cunningham campaign is actively organized with an aggressive field effort, and they're targeting groups like veterans, women, farmers, and younger voters. Even with the COVID-19 restrictions, I believe in North Carolina we're looking at a 70 to 75% turnout model, with both bases being energized and galvanized. So it really does come down, what does that unaffiliated voter do in the ballot box, and how heavy do they turn out? Next slide. I went through and looked over the last 3 general elections at the abstract data, the statistical data of voter performance, and trying to identify party advantage by television markets on voter performance. And as we look at the 2016 model, the only television market in the state where the Democrats have an advantage is the Raleigh-Durham, Fayetteville television market. So the Republicans have a structural advantage in every single market other than the Raleigh market. But the Raleigh market, as you see, is substantial for the Democrats, with a 227,000 vote advantage in the governor's race, a 205,000 vote advantage in the presidential and 152,000 voter advantage in the U.S. Senate race. So I talked about, a little bit about the crossover voter. Next slide. We will have to watch and see how that crossover voter performs at the ballot box. Will the Democrats be able to hold crossover vote to 7 or 8%? That is a trend line that we've seen in 2018. Does the anti-Trump atmosphere continue to hold Democrats close to their base? Next slide. So here's a breakdown of 2016 where it showed the Republicans statewide had 100,000 vote advantage in voter turnout in the 2016 election. And a lot of that was driven by the new 200,000 unaffiliated voters who performed in that election. So we will be watching that. One thing that the Democrats have to do to make North Carolina competitive is improve their performance beyond just the metropolitan counties and the northeast region of the state. They've got to look at better performance, not necessarily winning, but cutting their vote differences in the wraparound counties in the television market. In the presidential race, as I said, the Republicans have a structural advantage. Next slide. We're going to be a battleground state. The president is concerned right now. He just started a $4 million television buy in the state. The president, I believe, also in the polling data that I've seen, has got to be worried about fatigue with the marginal voter, the middle of the road, unaffiliated voter in the metropolitan areas, as well as the wraparound counties. It's extremely close, and the race will be determined within 100,000 votes. The Trump voter in North Carolina, next slide, are basically three groups. You have a loyal base of Trump voters, the true believers, I call them. They're predominantly lower income, blue collar, evangelical voters. You have your marginal Trump voters, which I call your country club Republicans. They're old school. They like the policies that the president has advocated. They don't necessarily like the way he speaks and how he says it, whether it's on Twitter and the demeaning fashion that he engages on social media platforms. That demographic's an older, white, wealthy, college-educated GOP voter. And then finally, you have in the Republican Party your never Trumpers. That's about 7 to 8% of the Republican base. They're fiscal conservatives. They're some loyal Democrats who are definitely opposed to them. The primary demographic there of your never Trumpers, white, college-educated, skilled, female Democrats, unaffiliated, and conservative Republicans. Next slide. So what to watch for in the presidential election? It's going to be minority performance. If it reaches the levels of 2008, right at 23% of the total votes cast, Democrats are going to have a very good night. If the Republicans turn out higher vote performance, 75 to 80%, and capture the unaffiliated voter within the suburban markets around Charlotte and Raleigh, it could be a good night for President Trump. I believe the race is going to be extremely close in the state of North Carolina, a 50,000, 60,000 vote margin. Next slide. Next two slides. And go one more, right. So here's the performance from 2016, Trump versus Clinton. The Democrats, to build base for themselves, need to cut the margins of victory in your red counties, Johnston, Harnett, Lee, Wayne, Franklin, Nash counties. Next slide. Republican advantage in the Charlotte market was 102,000 votes. Same thing there. The battleground will be Union, Cabarrus, Stanley, Rowan, Iredell, Catawba, Lincoln, and Gaston counties. Next slide. In the Greensboro television market, you'll see the same thing. Next slide. Let's go to the Tillis-Cunningham race. A lot of the races down ballot from presidential are going to be determined on what happens at the top of the ticket. The presidential, the U.S. Senate, the congressional, and the gubernatorial races ride to a great extent on how the two parties do on turning out base vote and persuading unaffiliated independent voters in your top two television markets. The Cook's political report in Washington has the race as a toss-up. Public policy polling has Cunningham up. Civitas polling has Senator Tillis up. Tillis has recently launched a major multi-million-dollar state advertising campaign, building positive, talking about his jobs record in particular, and the fact that he's going to stand up for the little person where he had grown up in a mobile home. The Cunningham campaign is going to launch a major statewide advertising campaign at the end of the month. Right now, there is independent expenditure advertising ongoing, attacking Senator Tillis, not seeing any IE spending attacking Senator Cunningham. What I can tell you is it's probably going to be a $30 to $40 million race. The Democratic Senate Campaign Committee has already committed $25 million in advertising reserved on television in every major market across the state. Tillis has reserved $15 million. The Senate Republican Senate Campaign Committee has reserved $15 million, and there's more coming. You're also seeing major expenditures on both sides of the aisle from the independent expenditure effort. Senator Tillis was not able to join us today, but he did send in a pre-recorded. He's on Capitol Hill with the Senate holding votes today, and he sent in a pre-recorded message, and we'll hear from Senator Tom Tillis.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to share a message with you all during your virtual Raleigh Chamber Partners event. We're all in challenging times right now. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to share a message with you all during your virtual Raleigh Chamber Partners event. We're all in challenging times right now, and I know having to move your annual dinner online was not what you expected, but I commend you for your flexibility, and I appreciate the important work you're doing in our communities. These past few months, I've been laser focused on protecting the physical and economic health of North Carolina and the nation, as we've all made sacrifices and worked together to fight COVID-19. North Carolina's economy and our business community has been devastated, but I know it's time to start the recovery process. I understand what many small business owners are going through right now because I've been there. I know what it's like to have nothing and to have to scrap for everything you earn. Growing up, I couldn't afford to go to college, so I went to work for minimum wage at a warehouse job. I put myself through college at night while raising a family, and eventually, I worked my way up to being partner at IBM. Those experiences taught me what it's going to take to get North Carolina's economy back on track and put the little guy first. My job is fighting for the jobs of hardworking people in North Carolina who are struggling to make ends meet. And we've made significant progress already. We worked across the aisle to assist North Carolina's struggling small businesses by passing the CARES Act, the largest economic recovery legislation in our nation's history. And the Paycheck Protection Program has provided over 100,000 approved loans in North Carolina, providing North Carolina's small businesses with over $12 billion. So what we need to do going forward with North Carolina continues to rebuild. The solution is not raising taxes or increasing government regulation on small businesses, which is what my opponent and Joe Biden want to do. Our state needs the same common sense economic policies that I helped implement in Raleigh and in the Senate, which gave us record job creation and growth, low record unemployment, and an economy where blue-collar workers are seeing wage growth that's outpacing their bosses. That's why this election is so important. We have a chance to revive our economy and to allow small businesses to flourish again. Or we can let the government get in the way and cripple the recovery effort. This is the case I'm going to be making every day from now until November 3rd, and it's going to be a fight. I'm glad so many of you are fighting alongside of me, and I thank you for your support. It's an honor to represent the people of this state, and it's an honor to have you as a friend. Thank you all, and God bless.
Thank you, Senator Tillis. Also joining us live today is former State Senator Cal Cunningham. And we will call on Senator Cunningham to present to us. Cal?
Brad, am I on?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you. Thanks for that presentation. I saw Mary Nash earlier, John, Mike, thank all of you for the opportunity to present here at this chamber gathering. I'm grateful for a chance to see you this way, though it's obviously much better when we can gather in person. I'm honored to be the Democratic nominee for this U.S. Senate seat, especially at a time when we're living through a generation-defining set of crises. Public health crisis that has precipitated an economic crisis, which is really revealing an inability on the part of Washington to contain the chaos that is around us. And in town hall after town hall on virtual format, in conversation after conversation, the struggles that I'm hearing from North Carolinians are really almost hard to believe. We're truly being challenged as a country and as a people right now. But I believe very deeply in the tenacity of North Carolinians. And throughout all of my life, I have run towards the fight. And in this campaign, I'm asking North Carolina and North Carolinians to put me into the fight so that we can take on the big challenges that are in front of us. Growing up in Lexington, I learned of the value of hard work. Stacking brick on the family brickyard in steel-toed boots and blue jeans, driving a forklift and a front-end loader. I grew up at the feet of a small town attorney who took on our neighbors' causes as his own at the dinner table at night. I learned through him that often in America, justice requires a fight. As a student leader at UNC, and I've proudly got my UNC flag over here on the wall, I learned the importance of public service, of giving back to a state that's made me who I am. And by the way, Brad, I heard the shout out about NC State earlier. My daughter just got accepted, so we're we're becoming ecumenical in the Cunningham household. After September 11th, the attacks that hit our country in 2001, I answered the call to serve, and I volunteered for the Army Reserve. 3 active duty tours later, I've served in Iraq and in Afghanistan. I'm deeply animated by the desire to serve people in a state that I love very passionately. But growing up in Lexington, growing up around business and in business, helping run a small business headquartered right here in Raleigh, I know that this and small business is the backbone of our economy. And in this crisis, so many of our small businesses have taken it on the chin. I've been a strong proponent of the interventions that are necessary to help keep our companies moving, keeping people on the payroll, measures like the Paycheck Protection Program. In this campaign, we're giving voice to the need to invest in the infrastructure of America, the research and development, and the education, the building blocks that are going to drive an American comeback. We know that we need to boost families and workers so that this economy can recover. One of the reasons I have called in this campaign so strongly for oversight of the relief funds is that we know with so much taxpayer money on the line that we've got to get it right, that we've got to make sure that we are taking on the risk of corruption. As a military prosecutor in Iraq, I prosecuted corrupt government contractors that were stealing tax money and disrupting our mission. Taking on the corruption in Washington is going to be one of the major priorities of my time in the U.S. Senate. Let me say this, as your senator, I'm going to lead by listening first. I'm not going to check voter registrations before I hear out the people of this state. And even though we may disagree on some of the issues, I'm always going to honor the North Carolina experiences of our people and respect where you are coming from. Small business is a vital part of our story here in North Carolina and our economy. And as a senator, I'm going to work in partnership with all of you to make sure we not just weather this economic crisis, but come back even stronger than before. I look forward to getting to know all of you, to working with you, to the opportunity to represent a state that I deeply love in a country that I deeply love. Brad, thank you for this opportunity to the Raleigh Chamber. I'm grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cunningham. Thank you for your leadership over a long period of time. And I think your daughter will love NC State. We're going to jump around a little bit. We have the Attorney General online with us to talk about the Council of State races. His race is going to be an interesting race, as well as the Lieutenant Governor's race. The Commissioner of Labor's race is an actual open race too. Again, it turns out to turn out, and it's going to depend on the performance of those critical voters in the wraparound counties around the major 3 television markets. So I'd like to bring on Attorney General Josh Stein to speak to us. Mr. General. See if we're getting audio there.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I could not
Thank
find
you.
the I couldn't find the microphone button, but we got it. Well, thank you, Brad. This has been a great presentation. I have enjoyed being able to observe, just like all the members of the chamber who are here. And it's a pleasure to be with the Raleigh Chamber today. I wish, however, we could be together in person. It's been too long since all of us have seen each other. I'm excited to join y'all today, not as your state senator, which I was for many years, but as your North Carolina Attorney General. I am extremely grateful to the voters for hiring me in 2016 because I love this job of Attorney General. I go to work every day with very dedicated public servants trying to protect the people of this state in many different ways. We protect people from crime by combating the opioid epidemic and eliminating the backlog of untested sexual assault kits. We protect seniors and consumers from scammers. We protect taxpayers by going after tax cheats and medical providers defrauding the Medicaid system. We protect our air and water, and we protect fundamental rights like the right to vote. With more time, I'd go into detail on each of these, but I want to focus on the issues of race and the coronavirus pandemic. Like every one of you, I was absolutely sickened by the video of the killing of George Floyd, who died at the knee of his own government. The North Carolina Department of Justice includes the North Carolina Justice Academy and the Criminal Justice Training and Standards Commissions. We take our responsibility to train law enforcement in North Carolina very seriously. And I recognize that we have a lot of work to do to root out racial disparities from the criminal justice system. I thank Governor Cooper for forming a task force for racial equity in criminal justice, and am honored that he asked me and Associate Justice Anita Earls to co-lead this effort. Our objective is to identify and implement concrete ways to make our criminal justice system more closely approximate the maxim that's chiseled into the face of the United States Supreme Court building: equal justice under law. Justice Earls and I are eager to get to work, and I know the governor is eager for us to get to work, and I look forward to reporting back to you all on our progress in the coming weeks and months. We are having this national reckoning on race at the same time we're dealing with the deadliest public health pandemic and the worst unemployment in my lifetime and most of yours. In addition to assisting the governor's office in drafting the executive orders, his policy decisions, we've been defending them in court and almost unanimously successfully. We're also focused on protecting consumers, which is a core aspect of our work. We've redoubled our efforts to educate people about scammers, because the criminals will exploit any opportunity, any moment of fear and uncertainty to try to steal people's resources. And their main avenue of attack has been robocalls. This is an issue I've been working on since I was elected. And a year ago or so, I put together a coalition of every attorney general in the country, 51, bipartisan, to negotiate a series of 8 anti-robocall principles with the major telecom companies to deploy technology to screen out most of these calls from ever coming to our phone in the first place, and to partner with us and investigate the wrongdoers. And I want to thank AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and the other major phone companies for their partnership in this effort to combat robocalls. Clearly, we have more work to do. I've also been enforcing the state's price gouging law during this emergency, and we recently won an order against a towing company in Charlotte that was putting boots on trucks, charging outrageous sums when the truckers were just trying to get medical supplies and food back into the stream of commerce, and we won an order so in that case. Many people, as everyone knows, are struggling financially because of this pandemic. So I've been working with the governor to do what we can to give people experiencing these financial struggles some breathing room to get back on their feet. I've asked financial institutions to join the Carolina Relief Agreement to help their borrowers. And I want to thank Bank of America for its participation. Bank of America has committed that any borrower who's in trouble by the end of this month can reach out to them and work out a 90-day forbearance and then repayment plan, and be assured that they will not be foreclosed upon or have their car repossessed. We're talking to other financial institutions, as well as if any of financial institution members of the chamber want to learn more, just reach out to me or to Bradford Sneeden in my office. And I want to thank also the many businesses that I know are bending over backwards to work with their customers who are just trying to keep their heads above water. I know this because I've talked to many of you. And so any one of you that are out there trying to give people that space, we appreciate it because it's absolutely necessary. And I know many businesses are struggling themselves during this recession. And while the PPP program was a lifeline for many businesses, too many of the recipients were national companies and not enough were mom and pop shops. And so I joined with my colleagues, a number of attorneys general, in urging Congress to reform that program going forward. Serving as the Attorney General of North Carolina, protecting the people of North Carolina has been an incredible honor, and I am eager to continue this work for another term. That's why I'm running for re-election, and with your help, we can continue to make North Carolina safer and stronger. Brad, thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. I really appreciate it. You taking your time to participate and to relay important information about your campaign to us today, both the chamber and those viewers who may be streaming us online on news outlets, WRAL.com. So Thank you for your time today. I will say that we offered the same opportunity to Republican nominee Jim O'Neill, the Forsyth County District Attorney, to either present pre-video or to join us on this call today, and he was unable to do so. Let's turn to our congressional races real quick in the state of North Carolina. There are 3 congressional races that are going to be extremely important to watch: an open seat in North Carolina 2, a closely contested race in North Carolina 8, which is from Fayetteville all the way over to Cabarrus County, and then an open seat in North Carolina 11 that was left by the vacating Mark Meadows, who is now Chief of Staff to President Trump. In the North Carolina 2nd Congressional District, it has been newly redrawn, reapportioned under a judicial mandate, and encompasses much of Wake County. Running for that office is longtime Democrat Deborah Ross, who had an impeccable career in the North Carolina General Assembly. Prior to that, she was with the ACLU, a lady of great character and integrity, and been a forceful leader for our state. I'll be happy to call on Representative Deborah Ross at this time. Deborah?
Well, thank you so much, Brad, and thank you to the Chamber for being creative and flexible about hosting this event. I've been to it many times as a legislator, as an attorney, and when I worked for Go Triangle. And I know that it's an important way to bring our business folks and our elected officials together. And so we're doing it virtually, but I look forward to doing it in person. I also want to thank the Chamber right now. I think that the Greater Raleigh Chamber of Commerce has shown its leadership in so many ways and in partnership with government. The Chamber has led the way on every single school bond for the Wake County school system, which is really one of the best school systems in the country. The Chamber has led the way every time Wake Tech needed additional resources to become the amazing institution that it is. And then I've worked very, very closely with the Chamber on transit. And one of the bright spots of the 2016 election was that Wake County finally passed a transit referendum and is working on a comprehensive transit plan that will help all of our residents get to work, get to school, and be able to be more mobile and economically mobile members of our society. It's going to be crucial to see what comes out of all of that planning. I've been a champion for infrastructure in the General Assembly and as a young municipal bond lawyer with Mary Nash Rusher teaching me how to do my job. And that's one of the things that I plan to focus on when I go to Congress. You know me because I've served in the General Assembly and I was with you for 10 years and I did a lot of work on voting rights, on higher education because I represented 5 colleges and universities, including Wake Tech, and on infrastructure. And those are the same kinds of issues I plan on working on in Congress, not just for Wake County, but for the entire country. Because the fact of the matter is, with COVID-19 right now, we are going to have to rebuild parts of our economy in creative ways. Wake County is one of the most fortunate counties in the country. We attract people from not only all over the state of North Carolina and all over the country, but all over the world. We have a talent surplus, and we've been using that to build our economy. But since COVID-19, we now in Wake County have an unemployment rate of 11%. And we know that many of the jobs that have been lost may not be coming back. And it is precisely the time for us to invest in our community college system so that people can get the jobs of the future and so the next generation can be prepared for the jobs of the future. And it's time to invest in infrastructure. Several of the other folks who have spoken have talked about the importance of small business. One of the great things about Wake County is that we've got so many creative and unique small businesses. We're not a real corporate town, but many of those small businesses are suffering, and what Congress has done to help them simply has not been enough, particularly for our minority businesses and for our restaurant and retail businesses. It's on us to be able to find ways to partner with government, to partner with our financial institutions, to be able to bring back that vibrant economy that Wake County has enjoyed for so long. I want you to know that I am going to be a partner with you every step of the way. I'm going to use my experience as a legislator. I'm going to use my experience as an infrastructure attorney. I'm going to use my experience, particularly now, as a civil rights attorney and advocate. Wake County is poised to come back from this coronavirus stronger than ever, but it's going to take all of us. And I'm so proud of everything that the Chamber has been doing to take care of all of our businesses, large and small. I look forward to working with you throughout this campaign, and I especially look forward to working with you in January when I go to Congress. Thank you so, so much for this opportunity to be with you, and looking forward to hearing from the other candidates.
Representative Ross, thank you so much. one thing that in watching your career that I've always been impressed with is your accessibility and your willingness to listen to even people who may have opposite side or opposing opinion, and your ability to respond. And that is so important in public life. And as we move forward, it is really important because we see such division in our politics today. Just the ability to be accessible and responsive is so very, very important. We reached out to Alan Swain, the Republican nominee for the 2nd Congressional District as well, offered their campaign an opportunity to present to us today, and they were unable to do so. So I want to go back real quick to our slide deck on the U.S. Senate race and run through that, and then we'll get to the governor's race. The really interesting thing on the Senate race is, again, the Republicans have had a voter advantage in the 2016, 2012, 2014 election cycles as well. So what makes the state competitive as we look at the 2020 election? Again, I go back and we'll continue to go back. It's going to be your wraparound counties in the suburban counties in your major metropolitan television markets. The Charlotte market and the Raleigh market are going to be extremely important, and how those campaigns communicate with that unaffiliated voter or persuadable voter throughout the election cycle. What you're going to see because of the COVID-19, the inability of the campaigns to get out and do door-to-door and to do the rallies and the activities that you typically see in an election cycle, you're going to see earlier television commercials and social media, digital media, advertising, radio advertising as a component. Because right now, between now and literally the month of September, over the next 90 days, 85% of all the voters who will cast a ballot in the general election are in the process of making decisions on the candidates that they're going to be able to support. Next slide. So looking at the Charlotte market in the 2014, while Senator Hagan won Mecklenburg County, she lost the television market substantially. And you see there was a 112 vote variance there between your wraparound counties and the performance of Mecklenburg. Next slide. Same thing in the Raleigh market. The Raleigh, Hagan was able to win the Raleigh market, but your wraparound counties were performing Republican. So Tillis actually lost the Raleigh-Durham market, and we've seen that trend line continue in the 2016 election. Next slide. Senator Hagan was able to win her home county in Guilford County and in Forsyth County, but again, look at the performance of the wraparound counties. The vote performance in the counties wrapped around clearly suggests those will be the battlegrounds as we move forward. Next slide. Let's go to the governor's race real quick. As I showed you in an earlier slide, the Republicans have a structural voter advantage in every television market other than the Raleigh-Durham market. In 2016, Governor McCrory underperformed in Iredell County. He underperformed in New Hanover County. He underperformed in Pitt County. He lost by 10,000 votes. If he had been able to improve his performance in Iredell County, New Hanover County, or Pitt County, he probably would have been reelected in an absolute squeaker. So that is a real challenge for Governor Cooper. There were a number of issues in the 2016 election, including House Bill 2, film incentives in New Hanover County, and then, of course, the toll road on I-77 in northern Mecklenburg and Iredell counties. So with COVID-19, the governor's been able to increase his approval ratings. He's raised his name awareness, but as fast as it shot up, it can fall. And the governor's facing critical challenges with increasing caseloads increasing hospitalizations, and then increasing calls to reopen the state's economy. Public policy polling and Civitas both show the governor with an 11-point lead. The governor's also purchased a significant amount of television, almost close to $9 million starting in August at this point. Lieutenant Governor is cash strapped, about $1 million cash on hand, according to the latest State Board of Elections report. He's not been able to buy, pre-purchase a lot of advertising at this point in time. But I would argue to you, based on the structural advantages, Lieutenant Governor really doesn't have to match dollar for dollar the governor, but he does have to be competitive in his television advertising campaign. Next slide. Turnout's going to be the major issue here. Does African American performance reach 2008 levels in your metropolitan and suburban counties? And is it metropolitan vote? Is it suburban vote? It's absolutely, Governor Cooper is the first governor in the history of our state to only win 27 counties and win the election. So he has got to look at improving his performance in your wraparound counties, in your major television markets, as well as improving in the major populated markets in Eastern North Carolina. So one way that the governor is going to do that is to look at defining Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest. And again, I think one of the issues that you'll see there in the governor's efforts to define Lieutenant Governor Forest is we'll see a lot of communications back on the House Bill 2 issue. And I would also say to you, it's important to watch your unaffiliated independent voter, because your metropolitan unaffiliated voter is a lot different in performance and philosophies than your suburban unaffiliated voter. And so as political consultants, we look at unaffiliated voters who live with Democrats, unaffiliated voters who live with Republicans, and then the really most important persuadable voter from an unaffiliated standpoint is an unaffiliated voter who lives with another independent voter, and they don't necessarily vote in the party primaries, whether it's Democrat or Republican. I do believe that Cooper has an advantage and that he will win, but it's going to be closer than the polls suggest at this point in time, probably a 60-vote margin. We offered an opportunity for Governor Cooper to join us by pre-roll, pre-recorded messages, as well as joining us on live. The governor was unable to get any type of message pre-recorded or did not have the schedule today to join us. So we will not hear from Governor Cooper. We did offer that opportunity to the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Forest, and he recorded a special message for us that we'll hear from Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest at this point in time.
Well, hey everybody, it's Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest here, and thank you for the opportunity to put together this quick rough draft video from my office tonight. I think you're going to be meeting here in a few short minutes, and I'm sorry I can't join you in person, but I have a series of meetings scheduled. But thanks again for this opportunity. I wanted to take just a second to be able to introduce myself to many of you, I'm sure for the first time. And just let you know that I'm in the process of running for governor, and we would certainly love to have your support. My background, as some of you know, is not politics. I've been lieutenant governor now for 7.5 years, but my background is architecture. And I like to remind people that architects are visionaries and planners, creative problem solvers, consensus builders, all the kinds of things that I believe we need in government today, but especially in the role of governor as we come out of the very serious challenges that we're facing right now in our economy and in our culture. Obviously, we were all hit by surprise with the coronavirus, and not anybody could see that coming just a few short months ago. But now we have to deal with that. Then we were hit with the riots and the destruction of property all over our state and our city, and we have to deal with that as well. I think we need to make sure that we do everything in our power to protect our citizens and to protect our businesses and to make sure these kind of things don't happen in the future. but it's also time to get back up and running and to get back to work. Thanks to everybody here who has made great sacrifices for your neighbors for this coronavirus pandemic. But it's time, I believe, to say that we can do two things at once. We can protect the most vulnerable because we know exactly who they are, and we can protect people's lives and livelihoods and get our economy back on track, because that's going to be absolutely critical. So leadership is hard work. We all know that. We have to roll up our sleeves. We have to do the tough stuff that it's going to take to get North Carolina back to that #1 spot that we've held for so long, #1 in business, #1 best place to work, #1 best place to raise a family, and Site Selection Magazine and Forbes and, and many others. But I believe North Carolina is the best state in America. I believe we live in the best country in the world. And I think our best days are yet ahead. We kicked off our campaign back in August, and a platform of 3 things: unity, opportunity, and possibility. And unity is about bringing people together. It's about how do we come together as a country, but how do we come together as a state? What's the best thing about North Carolina? How do we separate our differences and come together under the things that unite us? I think that's going to be incredibly important for our future. The other is opportunity, providing opportunities in education, providing opportunities in the economy, making sure that what is great about our state is there to be passed on to our posterity as well. And then the third piece is possibility, and that's about a vision. I believe we need a new vision for our state. I believe we need a vision. I don't know that we've ever really had one, but a vision that can propel us into the next 20, 30, 50 years even. And so I'm excited to be able to work alongside a lot of great leaders and innovators in the state of North Carolina to make that happen. Our state motto is Esse Quam Videre. You've probably heard it a million times: to be rather than to seem. I love that motto because I think in North Carolina, that's exactly what we are. We don't put on any pretense. We are what you get. And I think we need to go show the world why North Carolina is the greatest state in America. So let's go do our job. Let's go show the people of the world what North Carolina is made of, get things back on track, and regain our #1 status. So God bless you all. Thanks for everything you're doing. Have a great night.
We will go back to the slide deck on the performance statewide. The Republicans, the Democrats actually have a voter performance statewide in the major television markets. But again, the decisive factor in the governor's race and the U.S. Senate race, presidential race, will be your high-performing wraparound counties in our 3 major television markets. Next slide. Here's a breakdown of the 2016 Raleigh market with Wake, Durham, Orange, Chatham, Nash, Wilson, Cumberland, and Hope counties going for Governor Cooper, Johnston, Harnett, Lee, Moore, Wayne, Franklin going for Governor McCrory. Next slide. Let's take a second to look at the North Carolina Council of State races that are going to be extremely important. These races really do ride on the back of what goes on at the top of the ticket as well. Lieutenant governor seats are going to be an open seat with Dan Forrest running for governor at this point in time. Republicans have nominated Mark Robinson from the Greensboro area, and Democrats have nominated Yvonne Lewis Holly from Raleigh, who served in the General Assembly. I believe this is going to be a very competitive race. Mark Robinson has a built-in base of support from grassroots North Carolina and the NRA. As you know, he built his campaign along a presentation that he made to the Greensboro City Council from a year ago about gun rights in the state of North Carolina. Both of them are African American, and both of them are garnering support from their party bases. It will be interesting to see how they communicate with that middle of the road unaffiliated independent voter. The North Carolina Commissioner of Insurance race is going to be another interesting contest. It's a rematch that we saw in 2016 from Republican Mike Causey and Democrat Wayne Goodwin. Wayne had served 2 terms and appointed 2 years, so he'd served almost 10 years as the insurance commissioner and ended up short almost 43,000 vote difference in the election in 2016. This contest comes down to what's going to happen at the top of the ticket. and it'll probably be another close race. Wayne Goodwin has a competitive advantage right now. He has been able to outraise the incumbent insurance commissioner, Causey, but Causey is whole thrust of his campaign is going to be fighting fraud, corruption, and abuse. Of course, taking on infamous Durham insurer Greg Lindbergh in a federal corruption trial there. Then also last year taking on the CEO at Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina. So it's going to be an interesting race. It is very competitive. It is a toss-up race. Another race we'll be following is the North Carolina Commissioner of Labor race. It's an open seat. Cherie Berry is stepping down for the first time, I believe, since 1992, and when she was elected to serve, one of the longest serving members of the Council of State at this point in time. Republicans have nominated Josh Dobson, a state legislator from Surrey County, and Democrats have nominated Wake County Commissioner Jessica Holmes. That race is going to be dependent again on what goes on at the top of the ticket. Interesting, in North Carolina, this will be the second election where there won't be straight ticket balloting, so people will have to go down through the ballot to participate. Next slide. We have the North Carolina Supreme Court races. One of the most important races will be the race for the Chief Justice's position. Sherry Beasley, a Democrat appointed by Governor Cooper a year and a half ago, will be challenged by seatmate Supreme Court Justice Paul Newby on the Republican side. Seat number 2 is Lucy Inman, former Court of Appeals Justice, Democrat, and she will be challenged by the son of the President Pro Tem, Phil Berger Jr., who's a former district attorney in Rockingham County and served on the State Court of Appeals. And seat number 4 is Mark Davis, and he will be challenged by former State Senator Tamara Barringer from here in Wake County. Mark Davis was the former legal counsel to Governor Perdue, was appointed to the Court of Appeals and then to the State Supreme Court. So that will be the court races will be extremely important for the business community to be monitoring and see how those races go. North Carolina legislative races. Did Chief Justice Beasley, was she able to join us? Don't think so. The congressional races, as I said, we heard earlier from Deborah Ross. North Carolina 8th is going to be a really interesting race with former Supreme Court Justice Patricia Timmons Goodson, the Democratic nominee, running against longtime incumbent Congressman Richard Hudson from Cabarrus County. That race is going to be a Donnybrook, multiple millions of dollars spent from Fayetteville over to Cabarrus County. I would say it is very closely contested and a toss-up race at this point in time. North Carolina Congressional 11, there will be a runoff. There will be a runoff in the congressional race there for Mark Meadows' seat. Mo Davis is the Democratic nominee. I do understand we have pre-recorded message. I'm going to go back to the Supreme Court. We have a pre-recorded message from the Chief Justice. So we will see if we can get that video up and going for you to hear from the Chief Justice of North Carolina Supreme Court, the Honorable Sherry Beasley.
Hi, I'm Sherry Beasley, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of North Carolina. As Chief Justice, I lead the Supreme Court, and I also lead the judicial branch of government. There are nearly 6,500 judges and elected officials and employees who make up our more than 300 court facilities across the state of North Carolina. We know that people during this COVID-19 pandemic have been very challenged. We know that our communities and our business partners and so many people are facing difficulties. We also know that we have seen difficulties around the expression of racial concerns here in North Carolina and across this United States. The one thing that I know is that through all of this, we will be stronger as we come forward together, looking for solutions, collaborating, and making partnerships to make us stronger and better for a better North Carolina. I have served as a judge for almost 21 years. I became the 29th Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of North Carolina a year ago. I've served on the Supreme Court of North Carolina for 7 years. I served on the North Carolina Court of Appeals and as a district court judge in Cumberland County, presiding in all of our courtrooms. We're excited about our business courts. We have an amazing cadre of judges who work very hard, who are on the front lines of making sure that we are addressing the needs of the business communities across the state of North Carolina. I'm very pleased to be able to work with Chief Judge Louis Bledsoe, who is a real maverick in making sure that that court is technologically sound as well as jurisprudentially sound. So I'm very thankful to them and for them. I also know that so many of the businesses rely on our courts. We know that it is important that we provide the services that you need to address all of the issues that you might face. So some of your matters might come before the business courts, but so many of others might be addressed in some of our other courts. I can tell you one of the things we're very excited about is our e-courts. We know that it's important for us to be efficient and functioning in a way that attracts businesses to North Carolina. And it is one of the ways that we will introduce technology to make sure that we are not driving files from one place to the other in a way such that our judges can be efficient in the handling the cases that come before their courts. And we're very excited about the rollout of e-courts to the extent that it will really be the kind of life-changing device that will be helpful for businesses and for members of the public. One of the ways we're excited about making a contribution to the business community is we're excited about making sure that people have a driver's license to get to and from work. The Chief Justice's Equal Access to Justice Commission has committed its time and talent to working with district attorneys across the state of North Carolina to work to make sure that people's driver's licenses are restored. It's been amazing to see thousands and thousands of lives changed across the state because now people can safely and legally get to and from work. We're excited to be a part of that work. We're really excited about our COVID-19 Small Business Nonprofit Initiative. We know that many small businesses are struggling during this period of time as a part of this pandemic. This is a wonderful opportunity for small businesses that are challenged by employment issues, issues around their commercial leases, bankruptcy, and other issues to be eligible for legal assistance at no cost on a limited basis. If you would like more information about that, please go to ncprobono.org. We're also excited about the North Carolina Faith and Justice Alliance. It's a wonderful opportunity to train clergy to be able to identify legal issues and refer people to legal assistance at no cost to them. These places of worship will also host legal clinics for their communities. We're excited about the intersection between faith, law, and justice, especially during this very challenging time for our communities. I'd also like for you to know about our school justice partnerships. We're excited about the fact that we have an opportunity to partner with a host of community leaders to make sure that children stay in the classroom and not our courtrooms. As you can see, so much of what I've been engaged in is making sure that justice is truly accessible to all people. It's important that our courts are fair and accessible and just. But it's also important that we be partners with people like the business community to make sure that we are addressing the needs of our communities everywhere. So I thank you so much for this opportunity to be here with you this morning.
Thank you, Madam Chief Justice, for your comments today. Also joining us by pre-recorded message is Republican Supreme Court Justice Paul Newby. We'll call on Justice Newby at this point in time for his message to us.
Hello, my name is Paul Newby. I'm the Senior Associate Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court, and I'm running for Chief Justice. I'm the only justice to have been elected twice by the people of North Carolina, both in 2004 and then again in 2012, with widespread bipartisan support. My judicial philosophy is very straightforward: equal justice for everybody. Lady Justice is blindfolded for a reason. She can't see who comes before her: rich, poor, powerful, not powerful. Everyone is treated the same. Businesses need to have laws that are consistently and predictably applied. Business owners just need to know what the rules are so that they can comply. Government is there to protect our fundamental rights and freedoms. As our Declaration tells us, each of us is created equal, endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights of life and liberty and pursuit of happiness. And government is instituted among people to protect these fundamental rights and freedoms. I've practiced law for 40 years, served on the Supreme Court 16 years. I'm the only justice with a background of having been an in-house counsel of a company as well as a transactional practice representing businesses and individuals with regard to their business activities. In addition to that, I served as an assistant United States attorney where I was instrumental in recovering North Carolina's original copy of the Bill of Rights, stolen in 1865 by a Union soldier, and I did the undercover sting operation in 2003. The Supreme Court impacts what you do with your businesses. It answers questions like, what about personal liability? Does my business form protect me personally and protect my family? What are the rights of shareholders? Class action lawsuits, unfair deceptive trade practices. These are all issues that the North Carolina Supreme Court has dealt with during my 16 years on the court. And we continue to see these. Since its inception, I've been a big proponent of the business court, and I'm glad to see that it has expanded to give businesses opportunities to litigate their very specific issues in front of judges that are well trained in that. I wanted to share with you just a couple of the cases that have come before my court that I think would be of interest to you. If you are starting a business or you know of someone who is and they ask you to help them out, serve on their board, maybe introduce them to other people who may have some capital to invest, should you be liable if that business doesn't turn out the way everybody hopes it would? Well, in the past, we all thought that there would be protections there. Sadly, recently, my court issued an opinion that found a director, an outside director, liable to investors, even though those investors never relied on the information that he gave in good faith that he had received from the company. It expanded civil fraud liability for securities, and it reduced the protection that the General Assembly had put in place with regard to director safe harbors. Also recently, my court expanded class action lawsuits. This judicial expansion, I think, is wrong. I dissented in that case. I dissented in the case that exposed that director to personal liability. It's important that we have judges and justices who understand the importance of businesses, but also understand separation of powers. It's up for the General Assembly to make the laws, and the courts should enforce the laws as intended by the General Assembly. Courts should not be making the law themselves. This has been my approach from the beginning, and it continues to be. I grew up in a little town, Jamestown, over between High Point and Greensboro. My mom was a school teacher, my dad an hourly worker. Little did I know that I would have an opportunity one day to become a lawyer. I jokingly tell people the only 4 years I ever spent out of state were the 4 years I went to Duke. And then I had the opportunity to go to UNC Law School. As an Eagle Scout, I've continued my involvement with scouting, leading the report to the state. I've been honored with the Distinguished Eagle Scout Award and actually received the Heroism Award for rescuing 9 people from a riptide. I've co-authored the only book on the state constitution, and I teach as an adjunct professor at Campbell Law School. I would ask that you would support my candidacy for Chief Justice. Please visit paulnewby.com. Thank you.
Justice Newby, thank you for your message there on your race for the North Carolina Supreme Court Chief Justice position. Let's go to North Carolina legislative races for campaign 2020. Perhaps one of the most important campaigns for the business community is who we elect to run and lead our state legislature. For much of the 20th century, Democrats ran the General Assembly, both the House and Senate, in 1994. Republicans captured a majority in the state House. They lost that majority in 1998. Democrats maintained control from 1998 up to 2010. The 2010 general election, the Republicans captured both houses for the first time since Reconstruction in our state's history and have maintained control of the General Assembly. This year is going to be an extremely important. While there have been skirmishes, legal skirmishes over redistricting and apportionment in the state regarding the district lines for members of the state Senate and the members of the state House. 2020 is a census year. 2021, we will have redistricting all over again. So the Democrats are making an all-out push to try and to capture ground in the General Assembly. This month, Civitas voter opinion survey by Harper Polling gave the Republicans a 13-point advantage in the generic ballot question with very likely voters, with Republicans getting 45%, Democrats 32%, 18% undecided, almost 4% didn't answer or didn't have an opinion. It's absolutely imperative that the Democrats win all their competitive races and hold their competitive seats to take a majority in either chamber. And the question is going to be, will Democrats be able to gain seats in those suburban markets? You'll have a couple of competitive races in the metropolitan regions, but the pathway to holding the majority is who will be able to capture those suburban counties in your major metropolitan markets: Charlotte market, Greensboro market, Raleigh market. So let's look at the legislative races to watch in the North Carolina State Senate. Next slide. I think the most competitive races you'll see is the Senate District 9 in Brunswick County. Incumbent Senator Harper Peterson will be challenged in a repeat of 2018 against former State Senator Michael Lee. Senate District 11 in Johnston and Nash County, again, wraparound counties. Republican representative from the State House, Lisa Stone Barnes from Nash County, will face former State Senator Alan Wellens from Johnston County. Both of them have agribusiness backgrounds. Senator Wellens is an attorney as well. That district leans R. Another super competitive race in the state Senate will be in the Fayetteville market, Senate District 19, where Kirk DeVere will face a rematch from 2018 against former Senator Leslie Meredith. That district in Cumberland County is leaning D. In the Greensboro-Guilford County market, Senator Michael Garrett versus Sebastian King. That district leans D at this point in time. And the other race to watch, a metropolitan fisticuffs in Mecklenburg County, will be Senator Jeff Jackson, incumbent, versus Sonia Nichols, very well-known, successful African-American realtor out of the Charlotte area. That market, it leans D just a little, but it's only like a 1%. It's probably, in reality, a closer 50-50 split, and leans D to toss up. So it's going to be extremely competitive race there to watch. On the state house side, a number of races to watch. We start down in Greenville with Representative Dr. Perrin Jones and Democrat Brian Farkas. That's going to be a very interesting race. That is the seat that was vacated by the Congressman Greg Murphy, who was elected in the open seat when Walter Jones Jr. passed away. And that's going to be a very competitive, based on Pitt County performance. And I would call it a toss-up at this point in time. Another interesting race will be House District 20, Ted Davis, former state representative, versus Adam Erickson. That is an open seat left by the Representative Holly Grange, who ran for governor on the Republican nomination side. That seat's a toss-up too, based on New Hanover County performance. Another interesting race to watch that has Cumberland and Sampson County in it is Representative William Brisson in House District 22. Former Democrat, converted over to the Republican Party 3 or 4 years ago. Brisson came to power back probably 2008 when he defeated Ed Nye from Bladen County. And Albert Kirby is a former Superior Court judge, an attorney, African-American attorney in Sampson County, played football for Wake Forest University, very well known and respected in Sampson County. So that race is going to be a toss-up for sure. Another race that's going to be competitive is in House District 45 in Cumberland County, where Republican incumbent Representative John Zoka will face Francis Jackson, and that is going to be an interesting race. Past performance shows that it leans Republican. Cumberland County in presidential election years has extraordinary turnout, so that's a race that we'll be watching as well. Another race that is transitioning, district that's transitioning right now is House District 59 in Guilford County, where Republican incumbent Representative John Hardister will be challenged by Nicole Quick, and that district is truly a toss-up. Probably a small advantage for Representative Hardister, 51-52% Republican performing district. Again, how that district performs is going to depend greatly on turnout and what those unaffiliated voters do. Next slide. House District 74, Jeff Singer versus Dan Bessie. That's going to be an interesting race there. And the western part of the state in House District 105, Amy Bynum versus Representative Wesley Harris. And the rematch is in the far western part of the state, House District 119, Mike Clampett versus Joe Sam Queen. They alternate that seat basically every presidential and then off-year election. It's like the Democrats will win sometimes and the Republican will win sometimes. Can't tell you how many times both of them have served in the General Assembly because they rotate the seat back and forth. That district is literally that volatile. So at the end of the day, I believe the Democrats pick up some seats in the General Assembly. I do not believe that at this point in time there is any type of galvanized effort that shows the Republican losing the leadership in the state House or in the state Senate. The margins will tighten up, but at the end of the day, if the election were held today, the Republicans will probably capture a slight majority in the state House and a slight majority, 27, 23, 26, 24 seat majority in the state Senate. So that tightens up. Will there be more input as you look at 2021 session on redistricting with the Democrats picking up seats? They will be able to hold a veto-proof margin. So it will force the Republican leadership to the table to negotiate with the governor some more. Finally, let's look at some of the Wake County races that are going to be important for us locally. The Wake County Commissioner's race, we have incumbent Wake County Commissioner Sig Hutchinson being challenged by Republican Greg Jones. Matt Calabria getting a free skate, he's unopposed. Maria Cervania in Cary will face Republican Steve Hale. Susan Evans is unopposed in District 4. Dr. James West is unopposed in District 5. Dr. West has served, this will be Dr. West's fourth term, I believe. He followed Commissioner Harold Webb back in the late 1990s, I believe. And District, 2002. District 6, Greg Ford, current chairman of the county commission, will face Karen Weathers, the Republican, and Vicki Adamson in District 7 will face Farouk Akhteen. So on the Wake County commissioners races, you saw the abstract data. Wake County is clearly a Democratic performing county substantially to the tune of 185,000 to 200,000 votes. The Democrats were able to dominate the 2018 election, defeating long-term, four-term Sheriff Donnie Harrison by almost 40-some thousand votes, even when the incumbent sheriff increased his voter performance by almost 30,000 votes. So I think 2020 will be another positive year for Democrats based on past history and vote performance. So I don't see any major upsets coming in the Wake County Commissioner's race. In the Register of Deeds race, you have Tammy Bruner, who is former executive director of the North Carolina Democratic Party, and challenging Charles Gillum, the incumbent, who was appointed interim Register of Deeds following the arrest and conviction, retirement of Laura Riddick, a Republican who is a long-term Republican who got caught in an embezzlement scandal a couple years ago. Again, Democratic performance in the county clearly gives Ms. Bruner a tactical advantage going into the race. And it will be a race, again, based on turnout and looking at performance. Bruner has the advantage in that election. So that gives you an overview from the top of the White House all the way down to the courthouse review of the campaigns here in North Carolina. It is going to be interesting to watch. Be prepared for an avalanche of television commercials that are starting literally as we speak. They've been on now for a couple of weeks. That is just going to increase. You'll see more and more digital ads on your laptop, on your tablet, and on your telephone, mobile device. We will have a huge effort to improve and increase turnout. The Board of Elections at the state level and at the county level are working diligently to provide opportunities for people to participate in voting. You can go online to the Wake County Board of Elections website right now, put in your application. If you don't want to turn out and early vote or in general election day, Tuesday, November the 3rd, you can request an absentee ballot. The state has allocated resources for people because there will be an increase percentage of voters, probably substantially, who vote by mail this election cycle. So you can go online to the State Board of Elections website or the Wake County Board of Elections website and fill out the form for requesting your absentee ballot right now, and it will be sent to you probably the second week in September, I believe. So thank everyone for taking time on the chamber today. Thank everybody online at WRAL.com for participating. I'll turn it back over to Mike.
Thank you, Brad. I know that we were offering some opportunities for folks to feed in questions in the chat room, and so I'll have a few comments and see if there are any questions that have come forward. And without hearing any, I will give some wrap-up comments. First of all, huge thank you to you, Brad. Fantastic job today. I wish I were there to shake your hand and tell you how much we appreciate it. You did a masterful job, from the very informative keynote presentation showing us the situation and the circumstances that shape these races, to moderating this very dynamic and sometimes challenging virtual program where we have numerous speakers. So thank you so much, and we certainly appreciate your participating this morning and keeping the show running. So thank you. I'd also like to thank all the candidates who participated today or pre-recorded comments. These are very busy times. We did make an adjustment to the program, but it is heartwarming to see how many candidates participated. So thank you all for your participation. And lastly, I'd like to thank the chamber team from the leadership with our president and CEO, Adrian Cole. Just to echo some of the comments that Representative Ross had of just how appreciative I am as a member of all that the chamber has done to show leadership, to our chair, current chair, Delissa Alexander, also the wonderful government affairs staff, John Goodman and Sarita Hargrove, and our technology staff that helps keep these webinars going as seamlessly as feasibly possible. Thank you. So now we all are more informed. We're more informed of the situations that shape the elections on November 3rd. But we also know that, and we're more informed about the candidates who are running for these important seats. But we also know 2020 is extraordinarily unpredictable. We know a lot of things are going to change and a lot will happen between now and November 3rd. So I encourage each of you to stay tuned, stay plugged in. The Raleigh Chamber is here to help you stay informed in this changing season leading up to these important elections. So look for ways to stay informed, stay engaged with us as we continue these conversations leading up to the election. I'll give 1 second before I thank our sponsors again to see if there are any questions that may have come forward. So hearing none, I'm going to move forward and wrap things up. I would, again, like to express our sincere appreciation to the sponsors who've made this event possible. The presenting sponsor, McGuire Woods Consulting. Thank you to Mary Nash Rusher and the team at McGuire Woods. We really do appreciate the partnership and really appreciate your commitment to the Chamber and to this program with your sponsorship. Then I'd also like to recognize our silver sponsors, Dominion Energy, Fidelity Investments, and Nationwide Insurance. Thank you all for your contribution, your partnership as silver sponsors. And lastly, to our bronze sponsors, those include AT&T North Carolina, Martin Marietta, Relate Advocacy, Shellco, Skanska USA, and York Properties. Thank you to our bronze sponsors. And with that, again, I'd like to thank you all for joining us. Thanks again to Brad for doing a masterful job of moderating this event. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope you all stay safe and stay informed as we prepare for these important elections. Take care.
Thank you.